Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.
Welcome back to the Detroit is Different podcast studios. And today I have somebody that is synonymous with creativity. Definitely in this world of what has been labeled in the idea of storytelling. When you think of it, not just in Detroit, not just in Michigan, really getting across the world when we think of storytellers and what's become the industry, I guess, of storytelling and creating something of nothing. And that's really why I connect to this woman that I have here today. And like always, just pressing those boundaries of where creativity can drive and take you. Satori Shakoor, welcome back to Detroit is Different.
Thank you so much. Wow, what a wonderful introduction. I appreciate you interviewing me. Thank you so much. You are also very creative.
Thank you.
And thank you for keeping on.
Oh yeah, it's it's interesting being in this space and place and doing these different creative ventures, and then let's just drive there because you're like in the rare breed of like this is your second time around on Detroit is Different. It's just very few people that have come back, return bouts, and always open. So definitely, if you come on Detroit is Different twice, you are doing something real creative, real dynamic, and like touching people.
Oh.
So with that, let's talk a little bit about the twisted storytellers and bringing that about before it came about. Let's just go back to the beginning of that, because that was not that long ago, but very long ago in the time of like the way culture was delivered in Detroit, how things would happen in Detroit. And I can only imagine people looked at you like, okay, you have to be out of your mind to even want to do this. You're just going to be up there just talking to people. Like, how do you create something like this? Some of the same hurdles I was taking just in the digital world of podcasting, you were dealing with like in the actual world of making it an event, packaging, coaching people through, and delivering something that now is a home run throughout the nation.
11 years.
Mm-hmm.
On July 19th, 2023, we will have been doing the Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers for 11 years. So the brainchild was born in May. I would say May. The idea came to me. I didn't have a place that I was living. I was actually on the generosity of a friend living in her basement in Ferndale because Wall Street had crashed, Too Big to Fail had failed. Being an artist, I had run out of money, all my investments had crashed, and I really I was gentrified out of my loft, and so I'd gone to Canada to do a play, so I brought back a little bit of money and I had some unemployment, but I didn't know what my future looked like, but I had become a Moth star. I was traveling the country telling stories with the Moth. My first, I won a story slam, and then I went on to the Grand Slam, and then they asked me would I host the Moth, the first Moth in Ann Arbor, and I was the first Moth host there. And then they said, well, would you tell a story at the Fillmore Theater? And I think it was 2,000 people, and they went nuts, and from then on, I was going in New York at the Players and hosting, telling stories there. I went to the Hudson Theater for the Moth Ball, where I was sharing the stage with Adam Gopnik, Richard Price, who wrote for The Wire, Adam Gopnik, who is a thought idea person for The New Yorker, and of course Garrison Keillor, who's storyteller, and I was telling stories there. So I understood, oh my God, this is my calling. This is what I'm supposed to do, especially when people from all over the world were emailing me, thanking me for telling my story of grief and loss. And then I noticed that telling my story was healing me. I had lost my mother, and then 9 months later, my son. And so, and then my apartment, everything was gone. So people out there, if you feel that you are in the dark, that all things have crushed on you, that is the best time to create. And I know you know that for yourself, Cries, that we create out of our demise, what we look at our world crumbling. It's just sort of making way for another world to emerge. So I'm sitting in our backyard and I'm thinking, wow, if storytelling could heal me, could it do the same for the city of Detroit? Because it's 2012. We're just coming back from emergency management, Wall Street, people moving out, dilapidated neighborhoods, water shutoffs, all manner of crushing, devastating things for the citizens and the city of Detroit. And it was the same for me. After 6 years, I was coming back from having lost these bookends, my mother and my son, and not knowing what my future would look like. And I thought, well, if storytelling could heal me, forgive me, could it do the same for the city of Detroit? And I'm sitting in our garden, and the idea came to me. It was like, what if there was a place where people could gather to listen and tell stories, but not just any stories, stories that would connect, heal, transform, make a difference. What would that? I didn't have any money. I'm living in the basement of a friend's house. I'm on unemployment, and I had vowed to myself, I'm only going to do what I love to do for the rest of my life, because I had spent my life building my life to a point where I had been an actor for 12 years. I was living from having developed this art. And I didn't want to go to a job. I mean, jobs are okay, but they were crushing. So I'm only going to do what I love to do, which was crazy to say because I was in need of money. But I stood on my stand, and things just started to happen. So this idea came to me, and that negative part said, "You don't have any money. What do you mean?" But the idea, when you get an idea, you're a creative person, it becomes compelling. It was delicious. It was so delicious, I could not do it. So I sold tickets in advance and sold out this little 45-seat. It held 45 people at the loft that I had been gentrified out of. And when the 4 storytellers told their story, it was a standing ovation. So I used just any little thing to keep me going. Oh, it was standing ovation. Oh, people liked it. But every month I had to find a new place because we were outgrowing the place. 45 people came. The next time it was 70. We had to move, and then Carl Collins came and said, "Well, I'll get you 2 months at the Northwest Activity Center." That's too high. I said, "This is too big," because it was like 200 people. 200 people came, and then Juanita Moore, who was the then president of Charles Wright Museum, said, "Why don't you come over here?" So I came over there, had to build it up, but people didn't know what storytelling was, what it looked like then. People were saying, can I bring my kids? Is this like Dr. Seuss? I had one person.
That's funny.
Who I know, why would I want to come and listen? And one person hadn't come for 2 years. 2 years, she said, if I had known it was like this, I would have come. So I had to make videos, and we film all of our things. I had to make videos to show people what it is. And then I didn't have any money for marketing or anything, so I said, well, I have to produce the best show that I can with nothing, so that word of mouth can be our marketing, just direct marketing. Hey, you should come. So that's what happened. People would tell other people, and still I'm amazed when I said, how many people have never been to the Secret Society, and half the people in the audience stand up. Mm-hmm. And so we have, of course, we have a mission. I mean, it may be, I don't know how long this will go. Hopefully it'll go past my lifetime, because people have stories and things happen to people. And I think that people telling stories make a difference. But more than that, it is the audience, the listeners, who lend their generosity in listening to the storyteller, which gives that storyteller power, the comfort to tell things about their life that they may not know their greatness. Mm-hmm. They may think, oh, I can't say that. But in the telling of their deep truths and their experience, somebody else in the audience goes, I'm encouraged. Oh, my God. Oh, and then they rush to that storyteller and identify. So I believe that when people tell their stories, in the wake of their words, they create a community. They create other people who relate to them. And so it's a very, very powerful thing. Plus, storytelling is the most effective delivery system of information and ideas. And we've had, I could do a whole show about how but in 2014, Somebody told me Dick Gregory's coming to town. He's going to be at Mark's Comedy Castle, and so I was on Facebook. I'm going to ask Dick Gregory, will he tell a story at Secret Society of Twisted Storytellers? So I went there. I had a little invitation. I sat in the audience. I took a picture with him. I put it on Facebook and said, well, I asked him, and I thought that was enough. But I said I want him to be on my show, and then somebody called me and said, well, did you get his number? Did you get his agent's number? No. And they gave me the number, and I sat on that number for 2 weeks because I was afraid to call Dick Gregory. Well, he's going to tell me no, and plus, how can I pay Dick Gregory? So sometimes you have to just throw it out there in the world and then go get it. So it took me 2 weeks, but I was doing a seminar, and the challenge of the seminar is go past where you usually stopped. So I was definitely stopped in calling Dick Gregory, but right outside of Avalon Bakery, I made the call, and I talked to the agent. She says, oh, I think Dick would love to do this, and let me ask him. And he said yes, and I couldn't believe it. So we did a bunch of radio interviews together, he and I, and then he came and he did the show, and then, I took him to the airport afterward, the next day, and asked him for a testimony, which he gave. And I'm so glad that we had Dick Gregory on the show. And I figured if we could get Dick Gregory on the show, we could probably get anybody. So then I asked George Clinton, who I work with, as one of the brides of Funkenstein. And I had been trying to get George for 2 years. But my platform was so small, So I said, hey, the Moth, why don't you get George Clinton? And it takes a long time to get George. He's touring the world. And finally, I got him at the same time the DIA was reaching out, during that millage time when, they were and they said, can you come over here? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm happy to have George Clinton coming. We sold out the DIA. When you look, it was historical. They never had any funk up in the DIA. And it was sold out. You saw generations of people. And it was an amazing thing. Then we brought Michael Collier. We had Michael Collier, Naomi Long Madgett. We've had you. We've had so many illuminating people in Detroit, and people no one has ever heard of, but have contributed to other people's lives. And so I'm here 11 years later, and I've been working and developing this story to film for 6 years.
So before we get to that, I do want to you're hitting on so many points, and that's why it's like give Satori brevity, because I remember our last interview, even certain people were like, stop, let her go. So I'm like, let her go, because obviously you all see she's a master at work. She knows how to deliver the story, and then give the information and make it engaging. But so many points just in that, as you said, that you were in a space of discovery, new discovery, where sometimes, those spaces can be those times where people give up, quit, give out. You've worked in, you just name drop George Clinton and Brides of Funkenstein, but also from our first interview, you're an expert trained, classical instrumentalist. So from that world to the world of funk, and like funk when funk is happening. So and I'm not, no offense to anybody doing the funk nowadays. I think Thundercat, on the national level, and some of the things that
Thundercat is my Sands. I'm a Delta.
Wow.
Is her son.
Okay, that is so dope. But yeah, so when I think of funk nowadays, it's more contemporary. I think Thundercat now, but you also have so many other groups in that space. But you got that taste of things, and check Cinemax has this series, Tales from the Tour Bus, where you're telling a lot of the stories there, where I'm sure you remember a lot more of the stories than many other people. And even now, just through Detroit is Different, in my reach, and somebody that I don't know if he's come on yet, but I love for him to be there, and I'm gonna look to facilitate that. But Butch Small,
yes.
When Butch was, when Butch told that story, and then they told the story of Atomic Dog, and then Butch is like, yeah, man, we didn't know how high he was when he was making but it's a good story. But you go from this world of world class, like that orchestra, hot fine art to funk, and then shift into theater and being an actress. So like you're touching on so many different
Comedy,
worlds.
stand up.
Comedy, like you're touching in so many worlds, leading to a point where now you're back in Detroit, and it starts with the root of you just getting back into something new and dynamic. Because even the name itself, the brand, just like I think Detroit is different in certain ways, like it connects, like the secret society. So it's something that's unique itself. Like it draws you in. Like what's going on with this? And the first person that told me about it was rest in peace, my godmama, Mama Barnes, when Orthea did the show, and
Yes.
and it was so amazing. And then you know how Orthea would be, so she'd be like,
Queen.
you need to. She'd be like, you heard that, like, pop, like she'd always do this and all that, and I was like, okay, so now it's more so in my radar, and then I see the George Clinton, and then I'm like, okay, some things are happening. Now I'm putting it together. So your life experience has touched so many worlds of doing something creative, driven through creativity in different types of stages. And that's what I think gives you a brevity and understanding of delivering stories in different places. Because you've been in spaces that are like, when I say fine art, like where people cross their legs and they clap like this, and then the funk ain't nothing like that. The funk is like, like sometimes the funk is just people expect, and then you got the funk, and then you got what you all were doing with George, which is like a free flowing,
Crazy.
exactly, like expression, and then the theater and musicals, which depending upon who's doing it and what the play is, that has a different feeling. Audiences, you've been dealing with different types of stages for a while, and now you come to something that is so original, so back to the roots of African traditions of being a griot and coaching people up of how to be a griot. And now we're to a point where you're like, okay, I've given you some bits and pieces, but now I'm ready to open up the safe. You're there. We're about to get the story. So let's talk about the story now.
Yeah. My story. My story. I've been developing it for 6 years. I've done workshops in Canada and in Detroit because the story takes place in both those countries and cities, Toronto and Detroit. And it's called Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale. So it's my story of my 12-year journey during a specific period of my life, which starts in Toronto when I'm just noticing the symptoms of menopause. But there was no one around that could remember. I asked my mother, I don't remember. I asked older women, and they were either in denial, or now that I'm finding out now, there's very little research about it. Even gynecologists and OBGYNs, they don't know a lot about it unless they're specifically trained in it. So I was looking around to find out what's going on with me. Why am I feeling all of these different changes, hot flashes, the mood swings, the wisdom, the insights, the things that were coming, and I was so changing so fast, and there were different people that were in my life that I moved out of my life. There were so many things that I confronted with the courage of menopause, because menopause, it just says, you know what, it's time to be authentic. Because as a woman, we perform a lot to society. We perform for men. We perform to the male lens. And unless we're perky breast and we're dripping wet and we're, feminine, fit, and friendly, like they say in the manosphere, we don't have any value. But I knew I had value. I mean, I spent years developing my craft. I spent lots of money developing my craft. I made lots of sacrifices as a mother, as a woman, as a wife, as an artist. And what do you do with all of that? Just throw it away because somebody doesn't think your breasts are perky? So I wanted to understand this time of my life. Now I have a perspective because I'm on the other side. And now I see all of the starlets that were the Jada Pinkett's, the Moniques, the Gabrielle Unions, all 51 years old. And they're right at perimenopause. They're right at the stage. And people wonder what's going on with them. And so I want to start a huge conversation because women of the ages 45 through 65 are the largest demographic in the United States. And we're the vice president of the United States, CEOs, grandmothers, mothers who are raising the future of our generations. We're raising those children and shaping the directions of their future. And we're in power positions. We're working. People are working under us as CEOs, and we're in every imaginable space in society. And we've been shamed since we've come on our period. And so we're like, if we say we're menopausal, that means we're of a certain age. And because we can look like we're 13 all the way up to 70 years old, then we don't want to reveal our ages. I remember somebody said, my grandmother said, if a woman tell her age, she'll tell you anything. And I guess I will tell you anything.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. That's actually, I can see.
But it's like, well, if I knew then what I knew now, well, I know now what I didn't know then, and why should I hide it under a bushel? It's like this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. Well, it's shining. So I want to do this play. I want to come out and talk about things women don't talk about. There's a lot of things in my play. Postpartum depression, nicotine addiction. I had an addiction to cigarettes. It's 23 years I haven't smoked a cigarette, but it's just all these things that clutter up your life. And so now I feel free. I feel powerful enough to be vulnerable enough to tell my story. Because what I want is for women to open up and tell their stories. Because it's unimagined, the quality of life for women at this stage of life, because there's not a lot to know about it. We have symptoms that are uncomfortable, and the first thing we want to do is get rid of those uncomfortable symptoms. And pharmaceutical companies, they're uncomfortable. Let's give them something for that. And they'll make millions of dollars because we don't want to feel uncomfortable. But what if there were natural things that we could do, or other things we could do? Like, I didn't do anything for my symptoms. I wanted to live through it so I could write about it. But what I notice is that if I'm a laboratory, we're all laboratories. We're lab rats in our own lab because we live with ourselves 24/7. So I notice, the hot flashes come on when I eat hot things, wine, stress. So let me manage what I put in my body. Let me manage what's in my life so I don't feel the stress. Let me see what I can do in my life. So that means being very intimate with myself, honoring myself.
And with that, it's so funny because the I guess the way it was talked about when I was younger is like, she's going through her personal summer. It's like, she's going through that summer. Like, and it'd be like, she's going to be hot in the wintertime. Like, this was just the way it was talked about. And then it's funny that that's brought up. And when I think of it, a very telling show right now, telling the story of an artist that I believe that was very beloved in America, but very much misunderstood. When we think of that, is this HBO documentary right now on Donna Summer that I've been watching. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see any of it, but it's just unique because the way that it's spliced and put together, it's like that new, what I call like I tell it like audiobook style stories. So you do have more traditional documentary, which I like, where you have a person and they're interviewed and they're delivered. And now you have like this new form where they like string together like a lot of audio, but they mix both. So you have people telling the story, specifically her daughters telling the story of Donna Summer and just her journey in looking through life, and specifically, like you say, through the lens of how men would see her, but more so in a larger scale, how the record industry would feel as though she would be embraced from this lens of men seeing her. And then with that packaging, what happened is that packaging of this, like a lot of black singers, you know what I'm saying? Straight up from the church, Bible Belt, grew up singing Mahalia Jackson from her grandmother, child, to saying like, okay, we can make something sexy here. And she was doing like, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but like they're often often in the record industry, you'll do like producers make, I guess what you say, like a reference song. So like if I were to write a song for Taylor Swift, and Lord knows I can't sing for anything, but I would find a vocalist that would sing the song, send it over to Taylor Swift. These songs that were made, like especially like Love to Love You and stuff, were not records that she ever thought would be released. The record company was like, wow, this is phenomenal. DJ gets their hands on it thinking that, okay, men are gonna, this disco era, men are gonna fall in love with this sexy woman that's similar to you, like with a lot of acting experience in Germany and just a different type of life that I knew nothing about. And LGBTQIA community like grabs on and holds on to this career, which is a whirlwind of like her trying to understand how this record industry creates artists and where things go through this lens of men, and never really getting a chance to get her story out there. So as I'm watching this documentary, I'm just thinking to myself like, wow, I can only imagine there's so much more she'd want to say, but she's so packaged in this.
Yeah.
And I bring this up to you because you were in that mix in the music industry, even though funk is freedom, but we have so much more brevity than just even being a bride.
Yeah.
Or being the actress.
Yeah.
Or being a classical instrumentalist. Like, it's so much more dynamics, and I feel that you've done a great job of that, so I can only imagine how much more you're going to pour into sharing that, yeah, I'm all this. I'm the mom, I'm the daughter, I'm the granddaughter, I'm the artist, I'm the actress, I'm the producer, I'm the director. Sometimes I'm just a friend. Sometimes I'm doing comedy. Like, just giving more depth than just the package that oftentimes artists feel committed to being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the whole thing. That's why another thing I'm committed to in having people tell their own stories. Because if you don't tell your own story, then you just are an extra in somebody else's story about you. Because they get to say about you what they've been impressed by, but the depth of your life is a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, breathing in, breathing out experience of life, and life is a teaching experience, and a learning experience, because you're flowing with the ups and the downs, and it's how you handle those ups and downs that build your character and the way you see things. So you say some people give up. Nobody actually gives up. They keep breathing, but what they do is stop the thing that they wanted to do. And when I was living in Los Angeles, there's a visual artist. Her name is Faith Ringwald. And when I was doing stand-up comedy, there's a difference between being a comic and being an artist who is doing stand-up. Artists go way deep into the thing. They want to know. I wanted to know all the things about it. And I learned after, as you go through this process, bombing was something that I became afraid to do. So I thought, well, I got to bomb then. I've got to understand what bombing really is so that I don't be afraid of it, because being afraid of it is stopping the freedom of my expression. So I discovered bombing was just standing on stage saying something that you thought might be funny, but the audience didn't. And
True
so
indeed.
I would stand there, and they would look at me, and I would look at them, and I would be present in that moment, realizing that the audience is just waiting for you to say the next thing so they can laugh. They don't know you bombed. You're judging your own bombness. And I have been booed off the stage. And then I had to sit in Marla Gibbs Club and go, okay, the comic that went up before me, when he went up there, the room was flat. And when he came off the stage, the room was flat. When you went up, the room was flat. And when you came off, the room was in an upheaval. So all you have to do is learn how to make them laugh and it be in an upheaval. So then I could get up and leave. I got booed off stage at the Comedy Act Theater. Robin Harris, I thought I could go up there with my inexperience and say something about Robin Harris that was funny. And he was standing behind me making all these faces. And I realized that what I was saying couldn't be as funny as what the audience. And then I turned around, I said, oh. And then they booed me off the stage. And I said, you don't ever have to go back and do stand-up comedy. But to me, if something isn't challenging, it's not big enough. How am I going to grow from it? I'll just be doing the same repetitive. I might as well be on the line, doing robotical things. my life is a robotical thing if I'm not challenged. And challenges are terrifying because it makes you do things and has you think things and has you be in spaces where it's unknown.
I'm gonna just give you
You're an unknown.
I'm gonna give you the classic example that they talk about. Like, the fear of discomfort is a stronger fear of even harm. So, like, I think they have that classic science experiment where, okay, if you put a fish in boiling hot water, obviously toxic shock's gonna have them die. But if you just ease up the temperature where they're not comfortable enough and you have a big enough fish tank, they'll stay in that uncomfortable position and like usually venturing off to the other parts of the tank. So the same thing is true for us as people. We enjoy comfort. I think mammals in general, we want to be comfortable, but to try something new and take that risk, yes, it's very uncomfortable. Hence, public speaking, and you're encouraging so many people to do that with.
I can't
with
do
what
that.
you do. Because, like I say, it's like it's the biggest fear, and it's like, wow, people are more afraid of public speaking than jumping out of So because the idea of the disconnect, and here's a secret that I have from
Comfort is a form of death,
wow,
for an artist.
okay, we're gonna expand on that, but I was just gonna say, like, what I tell people, this is what's so funny in my world of stage performance. Like the other day, I was doing karaoke with T-Barb. Shout out T-Barb on Detroit is Different. Check out Retire Hood Rat and all the stuff she's doing. Like T-Barb's extremely creative, but she was doing karaoke at One Mic Stand for Mike Epps' new club, like before opening for Juneteenth. And we were just playing around with karaoke. The thing is this, what I think with all performances, especially that, because I can't keep a key for anything. And we did Rockwell, Somebody's Watching You. The more nervous you are, the more it actually looks like the audience starts paying attention. When you watch that person in the choir that's in the back, like, this little light of mine, it looks weird. But if you're not like, this little light of mine, and you can't even sing, people start looking at it and say, that looks normal. So the more you're in your head, it's funny. You're bringing that attention that you don't want more to you.
Yeah.
You start to shaking your hands and your paper into this, and it's like, whoa, I guess this person is new. They haven't done this. If you just go in there with an attitude, and I know I'm speaking from a person that's always talking and interacting, but if you go in with an attitude like you've done it before, here's another key practice for you. Use your mirror. Convince yourself in your mirror. Get in front of the mirror and deliver the speech eye to eye. Just like get in there. And like if you deliver it to yourself and you really sell yourself, chances are, I'm not saying you're going to win over every audience, but you're going to get some people in the audience to say, I get what this person connects. But let's talk a little bit about that. You said comfort.
I say that if I'm not nervous before I take the stage, I think something is wrong. I say the nervousness is the respect you pay your audience. You're walking out there for the first time, and it's like having a first date with somebody you really want to date. And you're going to speak the first word, and you're going to tell them stuff about yourself, or you go out there to profess to make them laugh, or you want to be successful, you want to show up your best, but you're just now shaking their hand. So there should be some nervousness, like I can't take you for granted. I'm going to have to earn your trust as an audience. I'm going to have to earn that. So the only way to earn that is to be as real and authentic as I can. So, stand-up comedy 101, you go up there and you go, I'm nervous. You state what's real. You state what's so, and then keep going. If you look like Kanye West, you go up and say, I know I look like Kanye West, because if you don't say it, everybody's going to be, he looks like Kanye West. I wanted to see, no, he looks like Kanye West. So you have to state the obvious. And so you can put it behind you and you can go on. The first time I ever did stand-up was at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles, and Eddie Griffith was the MC. Now, when I went to the Comedy Store on the open mic, it was packed. By the time they called me up on stage, it was
Like
five
2 people.
5 people in the audience. But one of them was Sheila E.
Okay.
And she said, you were so funny. I said, well, this was my first time. And she says, really? I said, yeah. She said, you need to keep doing it. So that's the second time was Marla Gibbs when I was booed off the stage. So the odds, I mean, and people did laugh on my little 3-minute unprepared. I didn't know you had to have a routine, a set. Already prepared material. I thought people just got up there and talked, and they found, people laughed. But what I found out, you have to have a set, And then I got a set, and then you get bored with the set because the set's dead. I already lived that. Tired of talking about that. So I started talking about my day. I started going up on stage not knowing what the hell I was going to say and just start improvising. And that's when I called Faith Ringwald, and I said, I don't know, because one of my stand-up comedy buddies, she says, no, you have to have material, and I can't hang out with you anymore because you have a different philosophy. So I called Faith, and she said, you cannot measure talent. What I can say to you is talent doesn't stop. And so that's what I say to anybody out there. Don't try to compare your talent with someone else's talent. Just know that if you're not stopping and they're not stopping, that's what talent makes happen for you. So I didn't stop. I started going up on stage, all these open, and just saying whatever was there to say. And people started following me. I didn't know people were even following me. I just saw the same people show up at the same place I was at in the audience all the time. Hi! And because who knew what following was back then? And so when I moved to Toronto, I started my acting career, and I took a lot of acting classes. But I tell you, where I got my real training from was Second City. I became a Second City actor, and I improvised. I was in a troupe that improvised a soap opera. Every week we would just improvise a soap opera. So improvisation is a beautiful skill that you can use. So all of these tools, all of these things were going into my briefcase of things that I had to offer an audience. So when I came here, I realized, okay, everybody has a powerful story. Everybody has innately in their life experience something that they can share that will shift consciousness, possibly, that can make a difference in the person who's listening. Everybody doesn't know how to tell their story. So what I knew I had to do from the very beginning with the Twisted Storytellers was I had to show people how to tell their stories. I'm the first audience. I got the ear. I'm going to listen to your story and show you, what to keep in your story, what not. Because people don't know, well, I walked, and then I turned left, and then I scratched my ass. And then, no, all that, not necessarily you want to get from point A to point B. You want to engage people. And so here's the way to do it. This is how you engage people in telling your story. So that developed me as a facilitator, as someone who could teach it. And now I don't even have a shortage of clients. I've never advertised, but the state of Michigan is a client. Duke University is a client. Wayne State, University of Michigan, individuals, lawyers, people who just want to learn how to tell their story, So it gives me a great joy to share that with people, because telling your story, being able to tell a story, is a superpower. You can use it anywhere. You can use it on a job interview, because storytelling is just the most effective delivery system of information and ideas, and it connects.
Yeah, I think, and I work, obviously in the space of a lot of community organizing sometimes, not sometimes, all the time. So community organizing, community business, social entrepreneurship. So a lot of times I'll get in the groups and they're like, oh, we can get this stuff on social media and we can touch with people. And like I tell people, and this is to all my activist homies, I love y'all. And like I'll keep reiterating it, but Satori just brought it home. It's hearts and minds, because people are going to walk away with whatever that story is, whether it's true or whether it's not true. So you can be stating the facts and packaging it, and it's like, oh, they're killing the oceans and they're killing the air, and the government person this and the government person that, and then a guy can come together and say, I know what you're going through. I used to be like you. I hate how this country is, and I want to make America great again. That story connected with a group of people. Now, he's segmented, obviously, off a whole lot more people that never will support it. But that story hit a pulse Barack Obama did it again. You know, change and hope. It's like you just deliver. Like sometimes you can just package something and it aggravates so many of my organizer friends. Like, how do people fall for this? Why does it connect? Because the story connects with people. Sometimes a story and the real tough thing is sometimes that story, the validity of it is God knows what. But if you know how to package a story, you're going to end up being, you can have friends. You can end up going places. You can be places. You know, Muhammad Ali, as dynamic as Muhammad Ali was. Like when we think of who Muhammad Ali is, I mean, he may be one of the greatest orators in American history. But everyone, and I'm not like saying I know a lot of people, but from the Nation of Islam and from the other sports people, when Muhammad Ali was around, the person they would call around was Boondini Brown. Like, hey, come here, Boondini, tell this story. So you're around one of the greatest orators. Another one, Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy's one of the greatest Hollywood actors, comedians ever. And we know what he's delivered in talent and everything. One of the most talented people ever. But when Eddie Murphy was around, rest in peace, they were like, Charlie, come here, tell the story. So it's like Charlie became the star of Eddie Murphy's circle just from being a great storyteller. Yeah. So like you can think about if you are that great storyteller, and I'm not necessarily saying try to align yourself with the most famous person you know, but I'm just telling you that even with the most famous people you know, it's usually somebody that you don't think that always will have that seat at the table because they're delivering the information in a way that just grabs on and it captures people's hearts and minds. And when you capture people's hearts and minds, that makes us feel good. That makes us feel entertained. So with that, in closing, give us a preview, and when I say that, of what we're going to get coming up in July with this story.
Well, you're going to get everything of me. You're going to get my life as we've been touching on here. You're going to get, I wrote the songs, the music. You're going to get comedy. You're going to get storytelling. You're going to get dramatization of my story. You're going to get music. It's like a spoken film. I'm very proud of it. I have worked hard on it, dramaturged it, worked with other people on it. So I'm presenting something that's well crafted, and I'm excited to put myself in the story and have people come and hear this 90-minute solo stand-up storytelling concert. I am.
Wait, time out. You already get all of that into it. Repeat what it is.
It's a stand-up storytelling concert. Confessions of a Menopausal Femme Fatale. It's very woman. It's very sexy. It's hot. And what I want to do is just start a huge conversation out there with women so that we can get rid of the stigma, bust the taboos, make noisy the deafening silence of this topic. Nobody, you hardly ever hear anybody talk about it unless they're talking about the discomfort, but there's a lot of joy in it. There's so much unimagined for women to have a greater quality of life. A lot of women break up. They get divorced. Their husbands don't understand them anymore. All of these things, if you start to talk about it, can create a remedy. It's like anything else when you tell your story. So if you tell your story about going through this, I would call it a rite of passage. Why can't we have a rite of passage for this? In Brazil, if to join these orishas, you have to be 50. You can't join before. And they have a big job to do. And so I think that we should uplift this demographic of women and have them be somebody that reaches behind them and pulls the younger generation and gives the younger generation what's going, if they're lucky to live long enough to be at this stage of life, they have some tools. They have some remedies. They have something to upgrade the quality of their life. They can have sex until whenever. They can enjoy relationships with their husbands, with men. They don't have to run out of conference rooms. I was doing something with the state of Michigan. One of the topics was menopause as mental health, and some of the women in the workplace, I just would like to be in a board meeting or at a meeting and not have to run out the room to mop the sweat. And I said, what I wish for you is that you can stay right in that meeting and mop the sweat and keep it moving while you have to leave,
And definitely, I can understand it just because just the pushes and pulls and the power dynamics in so many business worlds and just any industries, like when we think about industries or how things are communicated, and it's already so many stigmas and that glass ceiling that can be real for women, and it can be just looked at and off as like, oh, she can't make a good decision because look at her. Really, this was like a tonality of when Hillary Clinton was running for office.
Yeah.
It was a tone in a discussion. I think this kind of led to what's the guy's name? The guy that was on CNN. I'm forgetting his name. The anchor, when he said, "Oh, she's an old woman. Isn't she too old?" Like that same Don Lemon. When Don Lemon, that statement, and I'm sure it was other things with ratings or something, but that statement definitely hit a larger audience of like another one of those things where women have in the back of their mind like more of that, like, let me not tell my age, let me hide this because I'm not going to be looked
right,
at.
I am older.
Yeah.
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you breathe year after year after year, you will then gain life and age.
It's a blessing to be older.
It is. Life is much easier because you're not like, you can handle the controversies, you can handle the challenges, you can handle the things that come into your life. When you lose so many things, when you lose as much as I've lost, then losing, it's like, okay, what else? So you can take it on. It's like Muhammad Ali. We were talking about him. He could, like a bee, like a butterfly. He was, in his younger years, he was dancing all around the ring. And then when he got older, he didn't have to dance. He was so experienced, he could just watch you dance and then go, boom, and you were done.
Very much so.
So it's like, why expend all that energy? Why be twerking when you can just let them twerk and then go, I see an opening right there.
Interesting. So with that, how do people get tickets?
Okay.
And we can close out.
Okay. Tickets are exclusively online through Eventbrite. You can go to my website, satorishakoor.com/confessions. It'll tell you about the show. It links to tickets. You can scan. You can go down to Detroit Public Theater and scan your ticket. Just go and get the ticket. We're there July 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, 3 nights. We're gonna be making a film, so there'll be cameras every night. The opening night, we're gonna have Stacey Hot Wax Hale spinning in the lobby. We're gonna have, drinks and food, and it's a celebration. That's what this is, a celebration of life and continuing of life and the upgrade and the upliftment of life. And so I say, men, women, bring your mothers, bring your daughters, bring your men, bring your sons. Because I did speak to a class, and the young man was 19, one was 22. And after I was telling my story, he goes, I think my mom's is going through that. I said, how old is your mom's? 50? Yep. Well, how old's your mom? 49? Yep. She's going, I'm going to have to research that because we used to be cool.
Hilarious.
So
Hilarious.
The more you know, the more you know.
Well, at 19 and 22, let me just say this. As from being there, it may not even necessarily be the menopause. Like sometimes that...
Yeah, but if menopause is in the mix, baby.
It may heat up the already... Like, what are you doing?
Yes.
What are you doing? And you're probably wrong, 19-year-old, 22 person. All right.
Thank you, Cries.
Thank you. All right. Peace.
All right. Peace.
Black revolutionaries, distillery owners, Italian fashion retailers, and Motown Grammy winners all share their best stories never before told in any other media outlets on Detroit is Different. Visit DetroitisDifferent.com or download the Detroit is Different app on Apple's App Store or Google's Play Store.